Hi, it's the Carter Man. I'm out here on my front porch. You can see all the Christmas lights. Frosty, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, there we go. And it's almost Christmas time, so Merry Christmas. And you might be thinking, Carter, you look ridiculous. And I know it's true. I know it's true, but believe it or not, this is actually very warm. I think I could be in the Arctic and still feel warm with this outfit on. Look, it's even got the little ear flaps, makes it look like I'm Fido or something. I don't know. But the reason I'm wearing it actually is to make a point about ridiculous. Again, I know it looks ridiculous, but it really is cold out here. Because I want to say how ridiculous this whole brouhaha is over the little sodomite in the Senate office building, okay? Senate office. I just did a radio show on it yesterday, as a matter of fact. It was a show on Sputnik Radio. Yeah, that's the Russian radio. It's a good program, Final Countdown, I think it's called. And by the way, I have much more confidence in Russian radio than I do America's mainstream media. Now, you might say, but that's controlled by the government. Yes, Sputnik Radio is controlled by the Russian government, and the mainstream media in this country is controlled by the U.S. government. They read their handouts from the U.S. government every day, and you know it. Look at that's why they lie the way they do. They lied about Trump dossier. They lied about the Russian collusion. They lied about the war in Ukraine. It's their way. Whatever they're handed by the government, they do. So that's pretty ridiculous there. But what's really ridiculous, again, is the brouhaha for several reasons. Number one, I heard the young fella from Turning Point on TV, on Patrick Bet-David's podcast, I should say, which is excellent, by the way. Love Patrick Bet-David. And I like the little fellow from Turning Point. But he was saying one of the reasons it's so awful what this young man did is that it desecrated our sacred grounds there at the Capitol. They're not sacred grounds. The U.S. Capitol is anything but sacred grounds, folks. Remember, I worked there for years. Trust me, it ain't sacred, okay? It's a public building. You know, the left uses that sacred grounds to arrest 1,200 people who, actually, most of them were invited into the Capitol on January 6th, but they've been arrested for violating the sacred grounds. No, what they did was trespass on public property, at worst, okay, at worst, and that should be a misdemeanor. But of course, we're enduring the Biden regime lawfare against all things conservative now. So that's number one. The kid, what he did may have been tasteless and stupid, but it did not desecrate sacred grounds, okay? It's an office building, for Pete's sake. Number two, what he did, video, and it may have been a little unusual, probably not that unusual if you know, video in a public hearing room. Yeah, that's unusual. But trust me, what he did, having sex at the U.S. Capitol or at any of the Senate office buildings, remember, I've worked in Washington 50 years, in those buildings, that ain't at all unusual. There is not a more immoral and perverse bunch of folks on the face of this earth than the 537 members of the U.S. Congress, okay? Kevin McCarthy, folks, as I said on the radio show, he was popularly known as Kevin the Cockster. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry, he was. Everything he'd get his hands on, including the female members of Congress, okay? Gary Studs, name ring a bell? Censored for having sex in the men's room in the Capitol. Barney Frank, huh? Come on. You know, I trust me. I worked with members of Congress who they considered the women on their staffs service mistresses, I should say, okay? I'm just telling you that's the way it is. So it wasn't all that unusual, okay? It wasn't all that unusual for somebody on Capitol Hill to be having sex with someone else on Capitol Hill. Maybe a little more unusual the way he decided to do it. And that's the third thing now that makes it ludicrous, is his defense. And the defense being presented on his behalf by the homosexual community, the QBK or the ABCD, or whatever they call themselves, that he was just showing love. Let me get it right. He was just showing love. No. No, he's saying I was fired for showing love, and the gay community is saying we can't show love for each other. Folks, sex may come as a shock to some people, but having sex is not always the same as making love, okay? And going into a public room and videoing yourself taking it in the rectum is probably not the greatest act of love in the history of mankind, okay? Again, whatever he wants to do, that's fine. Look, you know, I'm not, you know, I think men putting their members up other men's rectums is, I'm just going to tell you, I think it's perverse. But the act itself is also done between men and women, so let's not get carried away here, you know. Let's not get carried away in our total condemnation. The condemnation is where he decided to do it, and for those of us who believe in the Bible, we think how he decided to do it with another guy is just perverse. I don't know what else to say. So there you have it. This whole thing is a tempest in a teapot, and we have a lot bigger problems to address in Washington among all those perverts on Capitol Hill who are morally perverse in every way possible that you can imagine, and not just what this young man was doing. Or perverting our political system, worst of all. And that's where we need to be focusing. That's where we need to be focusing. Again, I've said it before, as far as Congress, in 2024, a clean sweep with a new broom. Get rid of them. Massive turnover. Let's bring in some real conservatives, okay? We need to do this thing. We need to do this thing. Now I'm going to get out of the cold. Merry Christmas.